towering corporate empire celebrated for its innovation and success, yet crumbling from within under the weight of fear, toxicity, and mistrust. At the heart of it all stands a CEO, Liam Hunter, hidden in plain sight, disguised as a janitor. For 6 months, he walks the halls of his own company, witnessing the harsh realities his employees face. A respected manager shouts down a young worker. Promising ideas are dismissed without a second thought. Quiet conversations echo with whispers of despair. No one cares. Nothing will ever change. This is a story of betrayal by a system that rewards results at the expense of humanity and redemption, led by a man willing to shed his power and privilege to reclaim the soul of his company. What will he uncover in the shadows? And when the truth comes to light, will it be too late to save what he's built? Before we dive into this gripping tale of courage and transformation at Apex Global, comment below where you're watching from today. And if you enjoy stories of change and resilience, don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring content. The sun rose slowly, its golden rays reflecting off the sleek glass facade of Apex Global's headquarters. Dressed in a plain Navy janitor's uniform, Liam Hunter pushed an old cleaning cart through the main doors, nodding politely at the receptionist. She barely looked up, offering a mechanical good morning before returning to her phone. Liam didn't mind. In fact, he preferred it this way. Bookmark. Go back. The 14th floor button lit up with a soft glow as he leaned against the elevator's mirrored wall. In the corporate world, Liam Hunter was known as a visionary CEO, a man who had built an empire rooted in innovation and hard work. But within the walls of his own company, he was little more than a name on a plaque. This deliberate invisibility was part of his plan. For the past 6 months, Liam has been working undercover as a janitor, witnessing the unvarnished reality of his company's culture. As the elevator doors opened with a faint ding, Liam stepped into the bustling operations hub, the heart of Apex Global. Employees rushed past, clutching coffee cups and exchanging hurried greetings. No one spared a second glance at the janitor weaving through the crowd with his cart. It was exactly what Liam wanted. The freedom to observe, unfiltered by the power of his title. Today, his focus was set on a specific individual, Brian Carter, the company's senior operations manager. Brian Carter was a polarizing figure. On paper, he was efficient and results-driven, but whispers of his abrasive attitude and condescending behavior had reached Liam's ears through anonymous employee surveys. With mop in hand, Liam quietly began cleaning the glass walls of the conference rooms, his eyes discreetly following Brian. The manager strode through the office with an air of self-importance, barking orders at everyone in his path. Emily, Brian's voice boomed, slicing through the hum of activity. A young woman at a nearby desk froze, her fingers trembling on the keyboard. "Where is the monthly performance report? It should have been on my desk an hour ago." "I'm almost done, sir," Emily stammered, her voice barely audible. "I just need another 15 minutes. 15 minutes? Brian scoffed, leaning over her desk. "Do you even understand the concept of a deadline? Or should I explain it in smaller words for you?" His tone dripped with disdain, drawing furtive glances from nearby employees who quickly looked away. Emily's cheeks turned crimson as Brian stormed off, muttering under his breath. Liam tightened his grip on the mop handle. Though he had seen such incidents before, they never got easier to witness. Brian's behavior was not an isolated occurrence. It was a symptom of a deeper issue. The company Liam had built to foster innovation and collaboration had devolved into a space where fear and humiliation thrived. Later that morning, as Liam mopped the floor near the break room, he overheard a hushed conversation between 2 employees. "Did you hear how Brian yelled at Emily this morning?" one whispered, glancing nervously around. "Yeah," the other replied. "It's like he enjoys making people feel small. But what can we do? HR doesn't care, and he's untouchable." Liam's jaw tightened. This wasn't just about one toxic manager, it was about the culture that allowed someone like Brian to flourish. During lunch, Liam sat in the corner of the break room, pretending to eat a packed sandwich while listening to snippets of conversations around him. The atmosphere shifted abruptly when Brian entered the room. Conversations were hushed, and employees avoided his gaze. "Why is this coffee machine always broken?" Brian complained loudly, jabbing at the buttons. "Can't you janitors do anything right?" "I'll take a look at it, sir," Liam said, stepping forward with deliberate calm. Brian sneered. About time. Do your job properly for once. Biting back a reply, Liam inspected the machine, already aware it was in perfect working condition. Brian's outburst wasn't about the coffee, it was about asserting dominance. As Liam resumed his work, he felt the weight of the toxic environment pressing down on him. By the end of the day, Liam retreated to the janitor's closet, his mind racing. Brian's behavior wasn't just an isolated problem, it was a reflection of cracks in the company's foundation. Somewhere along the way, Apex Global had lost sight of its values. Liam knew the path ahead would be challenging, but he was determined to reclaim the vision he had once dreamed for the company. That night, as Liam locked up the closet and stepped into the cool evening air, he made a silent vow. He would continue his quiet observations for a while longer, gathering evidence and understanding the full extent of the problem. Only then would he take action, not as a janitor, but as the CEO of Apex Global. The next day, Liam arrived at the office even earlier than usual. The building was silent, bathed in the pale light of dawn. He adjusted the straps on his cleaning cart, his movements slow and deliberate. Today he felt a sharper urgency. The events of the previous day still lingered in his mind, particularly the humiliation Emily endured at the hands of Brian Carter. By the time the office began to stir to life, Liam was already stationed near the employee lounge, scrubbing scuffed tiles with meticulous care. He chose this spot intentionally. It was a crossroads where employees often gathered for casual chats, away from the prying eyes of management. Sure enough, as the morning wore on, small groups began to form near the coffee machine. At first, their conversations were light-hearted, weekend plans and TV shows, but they quickly shifted to workplace grievances. "Did you see the email Brian sent last night?" A young woman whispered to her colleague, her tone tinged with frustration. "He completely rewrote my report and then presented it in this morning's meeting as his own work." "Typical Brian," the colleague replied, rolling his eyes. "He's been pulling that stunt for years, and if you try to call him out, he'll make your life miserable." "Exactly," she murmured. "Remember Karen from marketing? She got reassigned last year because she refused to stay late for one of his so-called urgent projects." Liam kept his head down, pretending to scrub a stubborn stain. Internally, his thoughts raced. These weren't just isolated complaints. They painted a pattern of manipulation, intimidation, and abuse of power. Later that morning, Liam moved to the tech support department, a quieter corner of the office, often overlooked by others. As he emptied trash bins, he overheard a conversation between two team members. "Hey Raj, did Brian ever get back to you about the server issue?" one employee asked, leaning against a desk. Raj sighed heavily. "Yeah, he did. Told me it was my fault the server went down, even though it was his decision to delay the upgrade." "Classic Brian," the colleague replied, shaking his head. "I swear, that guy wouldn't last a day doing our jobs, but he acts like he knows everything." The frustration in their voices was palpable, and Liam couldn't blame them. It was one thing to witness Brian's harshness firsthand, but hearing about his calculated pattern of blame-shifting and credit stealing made the problem even more infuriating. By mid-afternoon, Liam returned to the operations floor, where Brian was holding court in the main conference room. The glass walls allowed Liam to observe without being noticed. Inside, Brian stood at the head of the table, his voice loud and commanding. "Is this what you call quality work?" Brian barked, slamming a stack of papers onto the table. "This report is an embarrassment. If I wanted mediocre results, I'd hire high school interns." The room was silent. The junior employees seated around the table shifted uncomfortably, their eyes fixed on the table or their hands. One young man, clearly gathering his courage, spoke up. "Mr. Carter, the data discrepancies weren't our fault. The figures came directly from—" "Don't make excuses," Brian interrupted with a sharp wave of his hand. "Own your mistakes, or I'll find someone who can." Liam clenched his fists, his calm demeanor beginning to crack. This wasn't leadership, it was bullying, plain and simple. Brian's arrogance was so deeply ingrained that he didn't even try to mask it. Worse still, none of the other employees dared to intervene, trapped in a culture of fear. That evening, as Liam packed up his cleaning supplies, he felt the weight of the day's events pressing down on him. He was exhausted, not from the physical labor, but from the emotional toll of witnessing his employees endure such treatment. He sat down on a small stool in the janitor's closet, pulling out a notebook he had been using to document his observations. As he flipped through the pages, he noted the recurring themes: humiliation, fear, and the pervasive belief that speaking up would lead to retaliation. It wasn't just Brian who needed to be addressed. It was the entire system that allowed someone like him to thrive. Liam knew that simply firing Brian wouldn't solve the problem. True change would require addressing the systemic cracks that had festered unnoticed for years. As Liam locked up the janitor's closet and stepped out into the night, he looked up at the towering building that bore his company's name. It represented years of hard work, sacrifice, and ambition. But somewhere along the way, the company had strayed from its founding principles. It's time to take back control, Liam thought to himself. Not just for the sake of the company, but for the people who believe in its potential. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but Liam was prepared. Change, he realized, wouldn't come from issuing commands from the corner office. It would require him to step into the trenches to truly understand the challenges his employees faced. And so, Liam made a decision. He would continue his observations for a little while longer, gathering the evidence he needed to act decisively. When the time came, he wouldn't just confront Brian Carter. He would confront the culture that allowed such toxicity to exist. The next morning, Liam arrived even earlier than usual, determined to dig deeper into the heart of the company's problems. The building was eerily quiet, save for the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional whirring of an elevator. This pre-dawn calm was Liam's favorite time of day. It allowed him the clarity to reflect and strategize before the chaos of the office unfolded. Bookmark, he adjusted the straps of his cleaning cart and rolled it toward the break room, choosing his spot deliberately. The break room wasn't just a place for employees to grab coffee or lunch. It was a crossroads for conversations. People let their guard down here, feeling safe enough to share frustrations, gossip, or concerns. Liam had learned more about his company in this room than he ever had in board meetings. As employees trickled in, the usual morning banter began. Weekend plans, favorite shows, and minor workplace gripes. Liam busied himself, wiping down counters and refilling paper towel dispensers, his ears attuned to the conversations around him. "Did you see the email Brian sent last night?" a young woman muttered to her coworker, her voice filled with exasperation. "He rewrote my entire presentation and then took credit for it in the morning meeting." "Classic Brian," the coworker replied, rolling his eyes. "He's been pulling that move for years. And if you even hint at calling him out, he'll find a way to make your life miserable." "I know," she whispered. "It's not worth the risk." "Remember Karen from marketing? She got reassigned after standing up to him." Liam kept his head down, pretending to scrub a stubborn stain on the countertop. Internally, his frustration grew. The fear and resignation in their voices were unmistakable. This wasn't just about Brian Carter's behavior. It was about a culture that allowed such behavior to go unchecked. Later that morning, Liam made his way to the tech support department, a quieter, less visible corner of the office. The tech team was small but essential, handling everything from system upgrades to troubleshooting urgent technical issues. Liam had noticed that this department, like the others, wasn't immune to Brian's influence. As he emptied trash bins near a row of desks, Liam overheard a conversation between two tech support employees. "Did Brian ever get back to you about the server issue?" one of them asked, leaning against a desk. Raj, a young technician hunched over his computer, sighed deeply. "Yeah, he did. He told me it was my fault the server went down, even though it was his decision to delay the upgrade." "Unbelievable," the coworker muttered. "He wouldn't last a day doing this job, but he acts like he knows everything." Raj leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "It's just exhausting. No matter what goes wrong, he always finds someone to blame. And of course, it's never him." Liam lingered, his mind racing with what he had learned. This wasn't just about harsh words or misplaced blame. It was about a toxic pattern that demoralized employees and stifled their creativity and confidence. By mid-afternoon, Liam found himself back on the operations floor, where Brian was conducting a meeting in one of the glass-walled conference rooms. From his vantage point outside, Liam could see Brian towering over a group of junior employees, his tone as sharp as ever. "Is this what you call quality work?" Brian barked, slamming a stack of papers onto the table. "This report is an embarrassment. If I wanted results like this, I'd hire interns straight out of high school." The room was silent, and the junior employees avoided eye contact. One young man, clearly mustering his courage, finally spoke. "Mr. Carter, the data discrepancies weren't our fault. The figures came directly from—" Brian cut him off with a dismissive wave. "Don't make excuses. Own your mistakes, or I'll find someone who can." Liam clenched his fists, his calm exterior beginning to waver. This wasn't leadership, it was bullying, plain and simple. And the fact that it was happening in full view of others only reinforced the culture of fear Brian had cultivated. That evening, as Liam sat alone in the janitor's closet, he reviewed the notes he had been compiling for weeks. Each entry painted a clear picture of a workplace poisoned by arrogance, intimidation, and a lack of accountability. Brian's behavior wasn't just a personal failing, it was a reflection of systemic issues that had festered for far too long. Liam knew that addressing these problems would require more than firing one toxic manager. The company's culture had to be rebuilt from the ground up, starting with leadership. But before he could act, he needed to gather more evidence and fully understand the scope of the problem. As he locked up the closet and stepped out into the cool night air, Liam felt a renewed sense of purpose. The towering glass building before him represented years of hard work and sacrifice, not just his own but that of countless employees who believed in the company's vision. It's time to take back what this company was meant to be, Liam thought. The road ahead would be difficult, but Liam was ready. He had built this company with his own hands, and now he would rebuild its culture with integrity, compassion, and decisive action. The morning air was thick with tension as Liam rolled his cleaning cart onto the bustling operations floor. He had decided to station himself near the main conference room today. Over the past few weeks, he had accumulated a mountain of evidence against Brian Carter and was beginning to feel the strain of maintaining his undercover role. Witnessing the daily erosion of his employees' morale was starting to take a toll. Brian Carter was already making his presence known, barking orders at junior employees as he marched down the hallway. His voice, sharp and grating, carried over the din of the office. Liam watched from the corner as Brian gestured angrily at a young analyst named Colin. "I can't believe this," Brian sneered, waving a report in the air. "This is amateur work, Colin. Do you even understand the concept of accuracy?" "I thought the numbers were correct," Colin stammered, his face flushed. Brian stepped closer, looming over the younger man. "Thinking isn't enough. I need results, not excuses. Maybe I should reassign you to a department where mistakes don't matter." Colin's shoulders sagged, and he nodded meekly, avoiding eye contact. Brian's tirade ended with a loud sigh of exasperation before he stalked away, leaving Colin to slump into his chair. Liam's grip tightened on the handle of his mop. He had witnessed enough. It wasn't just that Brian berated his team, he seemed to relish the power imbalance. It was an abuse of authority so blatant that it poisoned the entire atmosphere of the company. Liam resolved that he couldn't remain a silent observer much longer. Later that day, Liam positioned himself near the break room, one of his usual observation points. Employees filtered in and out, their conversations muted, their expressions weary. Despite his frustration, Liam maintained his calm exterior, methodically wiping down the counters as he listened. "Did you hear what Brian did to Colin this morning?" a woman whispered to her colleague, her voice barely audible. "Yeah," the other replied. "I don't understand why he gets away with this. HR has had so many complaints about him, but nothing ever happens." "He's untouchable," the first woman said. "The higher-ups only care about the results he delivers. They don't see or care about the damage he's causing." The bitterness in their voices struck a chord with Liam. He had heard similar sentiments echoed throughout the office, a pervasive belief that standing up to Brian was futile. The company's leadership had turned a blind eye to his behavior, prioritizing metrics over people. As the afternoon wore on, Liam made his rounds through various departments, gathering more first-hand accounts of Brian's actions. In the tech support area, he overheard Raj discussing yet another instance where Brian shifted blame for his own poor decisions. In marketing, he found Karen redoing a presentation that Brian had needlessly rewritten to make her work look subpar. Each interaction added another layer to the growing picture of a workplace stifled by fear and frustration. Employees weren't just demoralized, they were resigned. Many had simply accepted that their voices didn't matter. The breaking point came during an afternoon meeting that Brian was leading in the main conference room. Liam lingered outside, ostensibly wiping smudges off the glass walls while keeping a close eye on the scene inside. Brian was at the head of the table, his booming voice dominating the room. A group of junior employees sat around him, visibly tense. Liam recognized Emily among them, the young woman Brian had humiliated the week before. "This report," Brian said, holding up a document, "is a complete disaster. Is this what you think passes for professional work?" The employees exchanged nervous glances but said nothing. Brian turned his gaze to Emily, his tone sharp and accusatory. "Emily, I thought you were competent enough to handle this," he sneered, "but clearly I was wrong. If you can't manage basic tasks, why are you even here?" Emily's face turned bright red and her eyes welled up with tears. She opened her mouth to respond but quickly shut it, clearly afraid of making the situation worse. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence as Brian smirked, seemingly satisfied with the power he wielded over his team. From his position outside the room, Liam felt his composure slipping. He gripped the cleaning cloth tightly, his heart pounding with anger. This wasn't leadership, it was cruelty. Brian wasn't just undermining productivity, he was actively destroying his employees' confidence and morale. For the first time in weeks, Liam considered stepping in. Revealing his identity now, in front of the entire room, would be a bold move. But he hesitated. He needed to think strategically. An impulsive reaction could undermine the careful groundwork he had been laying. By the end of the meeting, Emily fled the conference room, her face streaked with tears. Liam quietly followed her down the hall, watching as she paused near the break room to collect herself. "I'm sorry you had to endure that," Liam said softly, his voice breaking the silence. Emily looked up, startled, and quickly wiped her eyes. "Oh, it's nothing," she said, forcing a weak smile. "I'm used to it by now." "You shouldn't have to be," Liam replied firmly. "No one should." Emily studied him for a moment, her expression wavering between gratitude and confusion. "Thanks," she said finally. "But it doesn't really matter. Nothing ever changes around here." Her words stung, but they also solidified Liam's resolve. Change wouldn't come easily, and it wouldn't come overnight. But it had to start somewhere. As the day ended, Liam returned to the janitor's closet and sat down with his notebook. He flipped through the pages of observations, each note a reminder of the toxicity that had taken root in his company. He thought about Emily's tears, Colin's defeated posture, and the countless whispered conversations he had overheard. Liam knew what needed to be done. The time for quiet observation was drawing to a close. Soon he would step out of the shadows, not as a janitor, but as the CEO of Apex Global. The atmosphere in the office felt heavier than usual the next day, a collective sense of unease hanging in the air. Liam sensed it immediately as he walked through the main hallway, pushing his cart. The employees were quieter, their usual small talk replaced by hurried whispers and downcast expressions. He didn't need to ask why. The humiliation Emily had endured during the previous day's meeting was still fresh in everyone's minds. Brian Carter, however, appeared completely unfazed. As Liam passed by the senior manager's office, he spotted Brian reclining in his chair, flipping through papers with a smug expression. The contrast was stark. While the rest of the office seemed to walk on eggshells, Brian carried himself with the confidence of someone who believed he was untouchable. Bookmark. That morning, as Liam cleaned near the break room, he overheard yet another conversation that underscored the pervasive fear Brian had instilled in his team. "Did you see Emily yesterday after the meeting?" One employee whispered. "Yeah," the other replied. "I heard she was so upset she almost didn't come back today. Can you blame her?" "No, but what can we do? Brian's been like this for years and no one's ever done anything about it." Liam's grip on the mop handle tightened. The resignation in their voices mirrored what he had heard time and time again. Brian's behavior wasn't just tolerated, It was normalized. As the day wore on, Liam continued his rounds, quietly observing. By mid-morning, he found himself back near the operations floor, where Brian was preparing for another team meeting. This time, Liam decided to position himself closer to the action, pretending to adjust a piece of equipment near the conference room. The meeting began much like the others he had observed. Brian dominated the discussion, dismissing suggestions from junior employees and taking credit for ideas that weren't his own. His tone was as condescending as ever, his words laced with barely veiled insults. At one point, Raj, the technician Liam had spoken with earlier, hesitantly raised his hand to share an idea about improving workflow efficiency. "Actually, Mr. Carter, I think if we reallocate some of the resources from the tech team." Brian cut him off with a derisive laugh. "You think? That's rich, coming from someone who can't even keep the servers running properly." Raj's face fell, and he sank back into his chair, his confidence shattered. The room grew uncomfortably quiet as Brian smirked, clearly enjoying his position of power. Liam felt his patience snapping. This wasn't leadership, it was systematic bullying. He had been holding back for weeks, gathering evidence and biding his time, but seeing Brian tear down his employees in real time was more than he could tolerate. As Brian turned his attention to the next victim, Liam took a deep breath and stepped forward. "That's enough," Liam said, his voice calm but firm. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Heads turned toward him. Confusion and shock etched across the faces of everyone in the room. Brian frowned, clearly irritated by the interruption. "Excuse me," he said, his tone dripping with disdain. "Who do you think you are?" Liam set down the mop he had been holding and straightened his posture. His calm demeanor never wavered as he met Brian's gaze. "I think I'm someone who's seen enough of your behavior," Liam said, his voice steady. "Enough to know that this isn't how a leader should act." The room erupted into hushed whispers. Employees exchanged wide-eyed glances, their shock palpable. No one had ever dared to speak to Brian this way, let alone a janitor. Brian's face turned red with anger. "You're just a janitor," he spat. "You don't have the authority to tell me how to do my job." Liam reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black ID badge. He held it up for everyone to see, the name and title printed in bold letters. Liam Hunter, Chief Executive Officer. The silence that followed was deafening. Brian's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. His usual bravado had crumbled in the face of the revelation. The other employees stared at Liam in stunned disbelief, the pieces of the puzzle finally falling into place. Effective immediately, Liam continued, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Brian Carter is relieved of his duties. And starting Monday, this company will begin a full review of its leadership practices." The room exploded into applause. Employees who had spent years enduring Brian's tyranny now clapped and cheered, their faces lighting up with relief and hope. Brian, meanwhile, stood frozen in place, his expression a mix of humiliation and disbelief. He opened his mouth to protest, but thought better of it. Without another word, he grabbed his things and stormed out of the room. Liam turned his attention back to the employees, his expression softening. "To all of you," he said, his voice carrying a note of both apology and determination, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for not being here sooner and for not paying closer attention. But that changes now. This company was built on the principles of respect, collaboration, and innovation, and it's time we return to those values." As the applause died down, Liam picked up his mop and cleaning cart. With a small smile, he added, "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some floors to clean." The room erupted in laughter, genuine and hearty for the first time in months. For Liam, it was a sign that this was just the beginning of a long journey toward rebuilding Apex Global. That evening, as Liam left the office, he felt lighter than he had in weeks. The first step had been taken, and it was a bold one. But the road ahead was still long. Change wouldn't come overnight, but for the first time in a long time, Liam felt confident that it was possible. The following Monday, the atmosphere at Apex Global was unlike anything the employees had experienced before. Whispers about the dramatic confrontation in the conference room spread like wildfire. For the first time in years, there was an undercurrent of hope. People gathered in break rooms and hallways, exchanging cautious but excited speculations about what might come next. Liam, now out of his disguise, arrived at the office early, wearing his usual tailored suit. As he stepped out of the elevator onto the 14th floor, employees glanced at him with a mixture of curiosity and newfound respect. He had always been a distant figure, a name on the company website, a signature on corporate memos. Now he was a presence, someone they could see, and perhaps for the first time, someone they felt they could trust. That morning, Liam called for an all-hands meeting. The employees filed into the largest conference room, many unsure of what to expect. Some still carried skepticism, wondering if this was a temporary show of action rather than the beginning of real change. Liam stood at the front of the room, his demeanor calm yet commanding. He let the murmurs settle before speaking. "I know many of you are wondering why I did what I did," Liam began, his voice steady. "Over the past 6 months, I've been working undercover to see the reality of our company. Not the polished reports, but the everyday experiences of the people who make Apex Global what it is." The room fell silent, all eyes fixed on him. "What I saw was troubling," Liam continued. "I saw fear where there should have been collaboration. I saw employees undervalued, overworked, and silenced. That is not the company I founded, and it's not the company we're going to be moving forward." He paused, letting his words sink in. Then he took a step closer to the employees, lowering his voice slightly. "This isn't just about one person," he said. "Firing Brian Carter was necessary, but it's only the first step. The real problem lies in the culture we've allowed to take root. And to fix that, I need your help." Liam went on to introduce a new initiative called Voices of Apex, designed to give employees at all levels a platform to share their experiences, concerns, and ideas without fear of retaliation. Anonymous surveys, focus groups, and one-on-one meetings with leadership were just the beginning. "This isn't about quick fixes or surface-level changes," Liam emphasized. "This is about rebuilding trust together, and it starts by listening." Over the next few weeks, the Voices of Apex initiative began to take shape. Employees were encouraged to participate in anonymous surveys, join focus groups, or schedule private meetings with Liam or members of his leadership team. To ensure transparency, Liam personally attended many of the focus groups, sitting quietly as employees spoke candidly about their frustrations and hopes. One of the most impactful sessions took place with a group of junior employees from the marketing department. As Liam listened, he was struck by the depth of their frustration. "It's not just about respect," one employee said. "It's about opportunity. Promotions and recognition always go to the same people, the ones who play politics or keep their heads down. Speaking up feels like a risk, not a chance to grow." Another employee nodded in agreement. "There's this unspoken rule here. If you're not in a senior position, your voice doesn't matter." Liam jotted down notes furiously, his mind racing with ways to address these systemic issues. When the session ended, he stood up and addressed the group directly. "I can't change the past," he said, his voice steady but filled with conviction. "But I promise you this, we're going to build a company where everyone's voice matters, and that starts with me listening to yours." As the days turned into weeks, Liam and his leadership team began drafting a comprehensive plan to transform Apex Global's culture. They called it Apex 2.0, a name that symbolized the fresh start they were striving to create. The plan focused on 3 key pillars. 1. Transparency and accountability. Every manager and executive would undergo a rigorous performance review, evaluated not just on results, but also on how they treated their teams. Anonymous employee feedback would play a critical role in these evaluations. 2. Leadership training and development. Liam believed that good leaders weren't born. They were made. He introduced mandatory training programs for all managers, focusing on emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and inclusive leadership. 3. Employee empowerment. New initiatives were launched to ensure that every employee, regardless of rank or department, had opportunities to contribute and grow. This included mentorship programs, cross-departmental projects, and a revamped promotion process based solely on merit. Implementing these changes wasn't without its challenges. Some senior managers grumbled about the increased scrutiny, and a few even resigned, unwilling to adapt to the new expectations. Liam didn't try to stop them. "If they're not aligned with our values," Liam told his leadership team, "then they're not the right fit for this company. I'd rather lose a few people now than risk rebuilding on a shaky foundation. Skepticism also lingered among employees, particularly those who had been burned by the old culture. Many questioned whether the changes were genuine or just a PR move. Liam understood their doubts and knew that actions, not words, would ultimately win them over. To prove his commitment, Liam made a bold move. He announced that his own leadership would be subject to the same scrutiny as everyone else's. Anonymous employee feedback on his performance would be collected and shared publicly. "If I'm asking you to trust me," Liam said during an all-hands meeting, "then I need to show you that I trust you." The first tangible signs of change came during the next company-wide town hall meeting, where Liam unveiled the initial findings from the Voices of Apex initiative. The results were raw and unvarnished, highlighting both the company's strengths and its deep flaws. But alongside the challenges, there were also glimmers of hope. Employees praised the new initiatives, expressed optimism about the leadership training, and shared stories of small but meaningful improvements in their day-to-day work. The most gratifying moment for Liam came when Emily, the junior employee who had been humiliated by Brian, stood up during the Q&A session. "I was skeptical when all of this started," she admitted, her voice steady but emotional. "But I've seen real changes, even in just a few weeks. For the first time, I feel like this company values me, not just as a worker, but as a person." The room erupted in applause, and Liam felt a swell of pride. It was a small victory, but it reaffirmed his belief that Apex Global was finally moving in the right direction. As the transformation of Apex Global gained momentum, Liam realized that one crucial barrier still needed to be addressed: the disconnect between senior leadership and employees at ground level. Too often, executives operated in a bubble, oblivious to the challenges and frustrations faced by the people who kept the company running. To bridge this gap, Liam introduced a bold new initiative, a day in their shoes. The idea was simple but radical. Every executive and manager would spend a full day working alongside employees in roles far removed from their own. Senior marketing directors might shadow customer service representatives, while finance managers could assist with tech support tasks. The goal was to foster empathy, break down hierarchies, and give leaders a first-hand look at the day-to-day realities of their teams. "This isn't just about observing," Liam explained during a leadership meeting. "It's about experiencing. You can't lead effectively if you don't understand the people you're leading." The proposal was met with mixed reactions. Some executives embraced the idea, seeing it as an opportunity to connect with their teams. Others, particularly those accustomed to the comforts of their offices, seemed hesitant. "How will this affect productivity?" one senior manager asked cautiously. Pulling people out of their roles could disrupt workflows. Liam anticipated this concern. Productivity might dip in the short term, he admitted, but the long-term benefits, stronger relationships, deeper empathy, and better collaboration will far outweigh any temporary setbacks. "If we're serious about rebuilding trust, we need to lead by example." The initiative launched the following week, and the results were immediate and eye-opening. Lydia Moore, the head of HR, spent her days shadowing the janitorial staff. It was a role she had never given much thought to before, assuming it was straightforward and uneventful. But as she worked alongside the cleaning crew, she quickly realized the physical demands of their job and the meticulous attention to detail it required. She also learned about the challenges they faced, from broken equipment to feeling invisible in the workplace. "I had no idea," Lydia admitted to Liam that evening, her voice filled with genuine remorse. "I've been here for years, and I've never truly appreciated what they do. This changes how I approach my role in HR. We need to do more to support them." Meanwhile, Raj, the young technician from the IT department, found himself mentoring the chief financial officer, Alan Prescott, on troubleshooting a stubborn software issue. At first, Raj was nervous, unsure how the powerful executive would react to being placed in a subordinate role. But to his surprise, Alan embraced the experience with humility and humor. "I'm not sure I'll ever understand half of what you do," Alan said with a laugh, "but I have a whole new respect for it, and for you." These interactions began to dissolve the rigid hierarchies that had once defined Apex Global. Executives who had previously viewed their teams as mere cogs in a machine now saw them as individuals with unique skills and stories. Employees who had felt overlooked or undervalued started to feel seen and heard. Building on the momentum of A Day in Their Shoes, Liam introduced another initiative aimed at fostering collaboration across departments. He called it Cross-Department Collaboration Projects. The concept was simple. Teams from different departments were paired together to tackle company-wide challenges, such as improving customer satisfaction or streamlining internal processes. These projects were designed not only to solve problems, but also to break down silos and encourage employees to see each other as allies rather than competitors. One of the most successful projects involved the sales and tech support teams, two groups that had rarely interacted before. Historically, there had been tension between the two departments. Sales often blamed tech for delays, while tech accused sales of overpromising to clients. When the two teams were tasked with creating a more efficient onboarding process for new customers, they discovered just how much they had in common. "I never realized how much pressure sales are under to meet quotas," Raj admitted during a team debrief. "And I had no idea how complex the systems are that you guys maintain," said Karen, a senior sales associate. "We've been pointing fingers when we should have been working together all along." The project not only improved the onboarding process, but also forged new relationships between the two teams. Similar successes were seen across other departments, that creating a ripple effect of collaboration and understanding. Despite these positive developments, Liam knew there was still one major hurdle to overcome: fear. While the company's culture was improving, many employees remained hesitant to speak up, scarred by years of retaliation and dismissal under the old regime. To address this lingering fear, Liam introduced an open forum called Apex Dialogues. Held bi-weekly, these sessions allowed employees to voice their concerns, share ideas, and ask questions directly to Liam and the leadership team. No topic was off-limits, and anonymity was optional but encouraged. The first session was met with a mix of curiosity and caution. Employees trickled into the large conference room, unsure of what to expect. Liam began the session with a simple statement: "This is your space. Say what's on your mind, and I promise we'll listen." For a moment, there was silence. Then Emily, the junior marketing employee who had become a symbol of the company's transformation, stood up. "I'll be honest," she began, her voice steady but firm. "I still don't fully trust this process. We've been let down before, and it's hard to believe things will really change." Her words hung in the air, a stark reminder of the work still to be done. Liam nodded, his expression serious. "Thank you for your honesty, Emily," he said. "Trust isn't built overnight, and I don't expect anyone to give it freely. That's why we're here, to listen, to learn, and to earn your trust back." Emily's statement opened the floodgates. One by one, employees began sharing their concerns: lingering favoritism, unclear promotion criteria, and residual fear of retaliation. Liam took notes, asked follow-up questions, and committed to specific actions based on their feedback. By the end of the session, the mood in the room had shifted. Employees left feeling heard, and Liam left with a clearer understanding of the challenges ahead. As the weeks went by, the changes initiated by A Day in Their Shoes, cross-department projects, and Apex Dialogues began to take root. Barriers that had once divided departments and hierarchies were falling. Employees started to speak up more freely, share ideas, and advocate for change. For Liam, it was a sign that the culture of fear was slowly being replaced by a culture of courage. And though the journey was far from over, he knew they were on the right path. Months into the transformation of Apex Global, the company's culture was beginning to shift in tangible ways. Liam's initiatives, A Day in Their Shoes, cross-department collaboration projects, and Apex Dialogues were creating ripples of change throughout the organization. Employees who had once been silenced by fear were starting to find their voices, while managers were learning to see their teams as partners rather than subordinates. But Liam knew there was still work to be done. Trust, once broken, is not easily rebuilt. The scars of the old regime lingered, and some employees remained skeptical about whether the changes were genuine or merely temporary gestures. One of Liam's next steps was to confront a pervasive issue: the invisible barriers that still divided Apex Global. These barriers weren't just physical or hierarchical. They were cultural. Years of siloed departments, rigid hierarchies, and a lack of cross-functional collaboration had created an environment where employees operated in isolation, their efforts uncoordinated and undervalued. To address this, Liam launched a new phase of his plan. He called it Breaking Down Barriers. The initiative began with symbolic but meaningful actions, like removing the physical partitions in shared workspaces. Departments that had once operated behind closed doors were now working in open, collaborative environments. However, the most impactful changes came from the human connections fostered through cross-department mentorship programs and interdepartmental task forces. Liam also introduced Team Fusion Days, where employees from different departments would spend a full day working together on creative problem-solving exercises. These activities ranged from designing mock product pitches to brainstorming solutions for real operational challenges. The goal was to encourage employees to see themselves as part of a larger, unified team. One such Fusion Day paired employees from marketing and IT, two departments that had historically clashed. Initially, the room was tense, with team members sticking to their own groups, but as the day progressed, the ice began to break. During one exercise, Karen from marketing and Raj from IT found themselves brainstorming ways to improve the company's website functionality. "I didn't realize how much pressure your team is under to implement updates quickly," Karen admitted. "And I didn't understand how much those updates impact your campaigns," Raj replied. "We've been so focused on our own challenges that we've forgotten we're working toward the same goals." By the end of the session, the two teams were laughing, exchanging ideas, and even planning follow-up meetings to collaborate on future projects. Despite these successes, Liam understood that the company's transformation wouldn't be complete until the last remnants of fear were eradicated. Apex Dialogues had been instrumental in giving employee platform to share their concerns, but Liam wanted to go further. He implemented a new feedback system that allowed employees to provide anonymous evaluations of their managers. These evaluations weren't just collected and forgotten. They were actively reviewed by senior leadership and factored into performance appraisals. Managers who received poor evaluations were required to participate in additional training programs focusing on emotional intelligence, communication, and conflict resolution. Liam also introduced a policy of leadership transparency. Under this policy, all decisions made by the leadership team were communicated clearly and openly to employees, along with the rationale behind them. This included sharing the results of anonymous feedback surveys, even when the findings were critical of leadership. Trust is built on honesty, Liam explained during an all-hands meeting. That means being open about our successes and our shortcomings. If we want you to trust us, we need to show you that we're willing to hold ourselves accountable. One of the most poignant moments of this journey came during an Apex Dialogue session. Emily, the junior marketing employee who had been humiliated by Brian Carter, stood up to share her thoughts. "When all of this started, I was skeptical," she admitted. "I didn't believe anything would change because we'd been promised change before, and it never happened. But over the past few months, I've seen a difference. People are speaking up more. Managers are listening. And for the first time, I feel like I'm part of a company that values me, not just as an employee, but as a person." Her words were met with applause, and Liam felt a deep sense of validation. Emily's journey, from a silenced and humiliated employee to someone who felt empowered to speak her truth, symbolized everything he was trying to achieve. With trust gradually being restored, Liam turned his attention to the future. He worked closely with his leadership team to embed the new values and practices into every aspect of the company's operations. This included revamping the hiring process to prioritize candidates who demonstrated not only technical skills, but also emotional intelligence and a commitment to collaboration. Liam also expanded the mentorship program, pairing senior leaders with junior employees from different departments. The program wasn't just about career development. It was about creating connections and breaking down hierarchies. One of the most impactful mentorship pairings was between Lydia, the head of HR, and Raj, the IT technician. "I thought mentoring would just be me giving advice, Lydia admitted during a meeting with Liam. But Raj has taught me so much about resilience and creativity. It's been a two-way street. These mentorships became a cornerstone of Apex Global's new culture, fostering relationships that transcended titles and job descriptions. As the weeks turned into months, the changes at Apex Global became undeniable. The office, once a tense and silent battlefield, was now a space filled with energy, laughter, and collaboration. Employees who had once walked on eggshells were now brainstorming ideas freely, confident that their contributions would be valued. Even the skeptics, those who had initially doubted the authenticity of Liam's efforts, began to come around. The consistency of the changes, combined with Liam's hands-on approach, proved that this wasn't just a passing phase. Liam himself remained deeply involved in the company's day-to-day operations. Though he no longer wore the janitor's uniform, he carried the lessons of those months with him everywhere he went. He often visited the break room, striking up conversations with employees, and attended team meetings not as a CEO but as a participant, eager to learn. One evening, as Liam walked through the now vibrant office, he paused in front of a plaque displaying the company's mission statement. For years, the words had felt hollow, little more than a decorative piece. Now they felt like a promise that Liam and his team were determined to keep. We're not just rebuilding a company, Liam thought to himself. We're rebuilding trust. And with that, he turned off the lights and headed home, ready to face whatever challenges the next day would bring. As the changes at Apex Global deepened, the company began to feel unrecognizable from the one Liam had stepped into as a janitor months ago. What had once been a rigid, fear-driven environment was now alive with collaboration, innovation, and mutual respect. Employees who had once kept their heads down were now actively contributing ideas, and even the most hesitant skeptics had started to embrace the transformation. Liam, however, was acutely aware that true cultural change wasn't just about fixing what was broken. It was about building something that would last. He often reflected on the fragility of the progress they had made and the importance of ensuring that it wouldn't unravel once the spotlight dimmed. One of Liam's key strategies for maintaining the momentum was to embed the new values into every layer of the organization. Hiring practices were overhauled to prioritize not only skills, but also character. Candidates were evaluated on their ability to collaborate, communicate, and adapt, qualities that aligned with the company's vision for a more empathetic and inclusive workplace. Additionally, Liam introduced a cultural integrity review as part of the promotion process. Employees aspiring to leadership roles were assessed not only on their performance metrics, but also on their ability to embody the company's values. This included anonymous feedback from their peers and subordinates. It's not enough to be good at your job, Liam explained during a leadership meeting. You have to be good for the people around you. That's what true leadership looks like. The mentorship program continued to grow, with new hires paired with experienced employees from entirely different departments. This approach not only accelerated learning, but also strengthened the cross-department relationships that Liam had worked so hard to foster. One of the most significant milestones came during a quarterly town hall meeting where the results of the latest employee surveys were presented. For the first time in years, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Trust in leadership has increased by 60%, Lydia, the head of HR, announced, her voice filled with pride. And over 75% of employees now feel confident sharing their ideas without fear of retaliation. The applause that followed was thunderous, a testament to the collective effort of everyone in the room. Liam smiled as he looked out at the audience, his heart swelling with pride. This wasn't just his victory, it was theirs. However, not all the progress was measured in metrics. Some of the most meaningful changes were seen in the everyday interactions that defined the company's new culture. One afternoon, Liam passed by a small meeting room and paused when he saw Emily, the young marketing employee who had once been humiliated by Brian Carter, leading a brainstorming session. Her voice was confident, and her gestures were animated as she guided her team through a creative exercise. "It's different here now," Liam overheard her say to a new hire. "We're not perfect, but we're trying, and that's what matters." Liam lingered for a moment, watching as her team rallied around her. Moments like these reminded him why he had taken the risk of going undercover. Later that evening, as Liam walked through the nearly empty office, he stopped in front of a framed photograph on the wall. It was from the company's recent charity event, showing employees from every department laughing and smiling, their arms draped over one another's shoulders. Liam stood in the back of the group, his expression one of quiet pride. It's a far cry from where we started, he thought to himself. But it's exactly where we need to be. The time eventually came for Liam to consider the next chapter of his journey. As much as he loved leading Apex Global, he knew that true leadership meant knowing when to step aside. Over the past year, he had been quietly mentoring a group of emerging leaders, preparing them to carry the torch forward. Among them was Emily, who had blossomed into a confident, capable team leader. Her resilience and creativity had earned her the respect of her peers and the admiration of senior leadership. One afternoon, Liam invited Emily to his office, a modest and uncluttered space that reflected his down-to-earth leadership style. "Emily," he began, gesturing for her to sit, "I've been watching your growth over the past year, and I couldn't be prouder. You've shown resilience, creativity, and a genuine commitment to our values. Have you ever considered taking on a larger role in the company?" Emily's eyes widened in surprise. "Are you serious? I mean, I'd love to, but I don't know if I'm ready." Liam leaned forward, his gaze steady. No one ever feels completely ready. But leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing to learn, listen, and put others before yourself. And you've already shown you can do that. Over the next few months, Liam worked closely with Emily and the other emerging leaders, guiding them as they prepared to take on greater responsibilities. He encouraged them to challenge the status quo, to push for innovation, and to prioritize the well-being of their teams. When Liam finally announced his decision to step back from his role as CEO, it wasn't met with shock, but with understanding. The company had grown stronger, not because of one person, but because of the collective effort of its people. In his farewell address, delivered to a packed auditorium, Liam stood before his employees and his team and spoke from the heart. "When I started this company," he began, "my goal was to create something that would outlast me, a place where people could thrive, innovate, and achieve great things together. Along the way, we lost sight of that vision, but over the past year, we've found our way back. And that's because of all of you." He paused, letting his words sink in. "This isn't just my company. It's yours. Its success doesn't depend on one person. It depends on all of us, living out the values we've worked so hard to rebuild. I'm stepping back, but I'm not stepping away. I'll always be here, cheering you on from the sidelines." The applause that followed was deafening, a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. As Liam looked out at the sea of faces, some familiar, some new, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. This was the legacy he had dreamed of, a company defined not by profits or prestige, but by its people. In the years following Liam Hunter's departure as CEO, Apex Global thrived in ways no one could have imagined. The company had transformed from a rigid, fear-driven environment into a vibrant community of innovation, collaboration, and mutual respect. The initiatives Liam had introduced, A Day in Their Shoes, cross-department collaboration, and Apex Dialogues, were no longer just programs. They were woven into the fabric of the organization. Emily, now a senior leader within the company, carried forward Liam's vision with the same humility and determination he had instilled in her. She often spoke of the lessons she learned from her journey, reminding others that leadership was about service, not status. Apex Global's success extended far beyond the walls of its headquarters. The company became a case study for cultural transformation, with other organizations seeking to learn from its example. Liam, though no longer at the helm, was often invited to speak at conferences and workshops, sharing his story of going undercover as a janitor to uncover the truth about his company. During one such event, Liam stood before an audience of young leaders, his voice steady and reflective. "I didn't set out to be a hero," he began. "I just wanted to understand what was broken in my company and fix it. But what I learned is that fixing a culture isn't about quick solutions. It's about listening, learning, and putting people first." His words resonated deeply, sparking conversations about the importance of empathy and accountability in leadership. Back at Apex Global, Emily and her team continued to build on the foundation Liam had laid. One of their most ambitious projects was the introduction of a culture compass, a digital platform that allowed employees to share ideas, provide feedback, and track the company's progress toward its cultural goals. The platform became a hub of engagement, fostering a sense of ownership among employees at all levels. "We're not just maintaining what Liam started," Emily explained during a quarterly town hall. "We're evolving it. Culture isn't static. It's something we have to nurture every day." One of the most heartwarming moments came during an Apex Global charity event. Employees from every department volunteered to rebuild a local community center, working side by side to paint walls, plant gardens, and repair playground equipment. Liam, invited as a guest of honor, watched from a distance as the team came together with laughter and camaraderie. This, he thought, is what a real legacy looks like. Though Liam had stepped back from the day-to-day operations of Apex Global, he remained deeply connected to its people. He served as a mentor to Emily and other emerging leaders, offering guidance and encouragement as they navigated their own challenges. One afternoon, Emily visited Liam at his home to discuss a particularly difficult decision she was grappling with. "Liam," she began, "how did you always know what the right thing to do was?" Liam chuckled softly. "I didn't always know," he admitted, "but I learned that the right decision is usually the one that aligns with your values. It's not always the easiest choice, but it's the one you'll be proud of when you look back." Emily nodded, her confidence renewed. As the years passed, Liam watched with pride as Apex Global continued to flourish. The company became a model for others, proving that a commitment to culture and values could drive not only employee satisfaction, but also sustained business success. One day, as Liam strolled through the park near his home, he came across a group of young professionals engaged in a spirited discussion. Their conversation caught his attention, and he stopped to listen discreetly. "Have you read about Apex Global's transformation?" one of them asked. "It's incredible how they turned things around." "Yeah," another chimed in. "Their former CEO, what's his name, Liam Hunter? He went undercover as a janitor to see what was really happening. That takes guts." Liam smiled, his heart warmed by the thought that his story had inspired others. He continued walking, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. On the walls of Apex Global's headquarters, a new mission statement now hung prominently. "A company is only as strong as the people who believe in it." At Apex Global, we build not just for profit, but for purpose. One act of respect, one collaboration, and one innovation at a time. The statement was more than just words, it was a promise. And every employee, from the newest hire to the most senior leader, carried that promise forward. Liam's journey from CEO to janitor and back again was more than a bold experiment. It was a testament to the power of humility and the belief that true leadership is about serving others. Though he had traded the corner office for a quieter life, the impact of his actions continued to ripple through the business world, inspiring a new generation of leaders to prioritize values over ego. In the end, Liam Hunter didn't just rebuild a company, he built a legacy. And that legacy wasn't just about Apex Global's success, it was about the countless lives he touched along the way. True leadership, Liam often said, wasn't about titles or power. It was about leaving the world and the people in it better than you found them. With that, the story of Apex Global came full circle. What began as a bold experiment to uncover the truth had transformed into a blueprint for how organizations could thrive by placing people at the heart of everything they do. And as Liam Hunter watched from the sidelines, he knew his work had only just begun. The story of Liam Hunter and Apex Global is more than just a narrative about corporate transformation. It's a powerful reminder of the importance of humility, empathy, and action in leadership. Liam's decision to step into the shoes of his employees wasn't just bold, it was revolutionary. By seeing the workplace through their eyes, he uncovered truths that metrics and reports could never reveal. His journey demonstrates that effective leadership is not about authority or power. It's about understanding, listening, and being willing to roll up your sleeves for the good of the team. Apex Global's transformation offers a valuable lesson for any organization. Culture matters. A toxic work environment can stifle creativity, erode trust, and push talented people away. However, with the right intentions and actions, even the most broken systems can be rebuilt. Liam's story teaches us that real change requires courage, not only to confront the issues, but to actively involve others in creating solutions. As we reflect on this journey, we're reminded that leadership is ultimately about service. Whether you're leading a team, managing a department, or simply working alongside others, the way you treat people matters. Respect, accountability, and compassion aren't just ideals, they're the foundation of any thriving community. Bookmark. If this story moves you, we want to hear your thoughts. Was it inspiring? Did it resonate with your own experiences? If you thought the story was good, leave a 1 in the comments. If you thought it was amazing, leave a 2. We'd also love to hear your personal stories. Have you ever witnessed or been part of a workplace transformation? How did it change you or the people around you? Share your insights and reflections in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to ensure you never miss more meaningful stories like this one. Each story we share is a testament to the power of growth, resilience, and humanity. And we'd love for you to join us on this journey. Let's keep the conversation going. What did this story mean to you? We can't wait to hear from you.